Hello and welcome to Literally Me, the official Ryan Gosling Rewatch podcast. I am your host, Dean's Beans, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend, Fluffy Duffy, aka Harlan. Hello, Harlan.
You didn't have any more like adjectives for me there. Just good friend. That what I get for being late today?
A peek behind the curtain for our listeners. I just this is the second attempt of us recording this intro. And in the first intro, I said, "Welcome to HD Movie Talk," which, if you don't know, was our previous podcast.
But it's dead now,
I
even
was
though it's the same thing.
and I was so focused on saying literally me that all other thoughts had just left my mind. And I was just like, Ryan Gosling. I mean, that's what my brain's like anyway. Ryan Gosling, Ryan Gosling. But we got there in the end, and we are here to talk about every single Ryan Gosling film because that's our mission.
That is
Not
our mit.
not just in life, but on this podcast as well.
And what are we talking about today, Dean?
Well, this is episode 6, so we are talking about his 6th film, and that is The United States of Leland, which is a film that was released in 2003 when the Goz was 22 years old, finally older than you and I.
Wow.
Wow. Although in this film, he does look so much younger than he does in like The Believer.
The power of filmmaking. It's crazy.
The power of a haircut is what I think. Um,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Hannah, do you want to give us a brief synopsis on this?
So I have the synopsis pulled up for the first time. So I'm just gonna run through that because honestly, the people that made this movie might know this movie better than I do. But that's still up in the air. A withdrawn young man, Leland Fitzgerald, played by Ryan Gosling, is in prison for the murder of a mentally disabled boy who also happened to be the brother of his girlfriend, Becky. As the community struggles to deal with killing, Pearl Madison, a teacher at the prison, decides to write about Leland's case. Meanwhile, others affected by the murder, including Becky and her sister Julie, must contend with their own problems.
Yeah, so it's pretty much a film where the film starts with Ryan Gosling having killed this disabled kid, going to prison, and it's kind of him dealing with that, the family of the kid dealing with that, and his character, who's called Leland, dealing with that. And nobody watched this film. There's a little fun fact for you. It made let me find the exact number for you. $343,847 in the box office.
All right, not as big as Flop though.
No, that made quite a bit more money than the Slaughter Rule, which made 13,000. But also, I couldn't find any money on the budget, any figure on the budget of this film.
Really?
But I would argue this film definitely cost more than The Believer and the Slaughter Rule.
Oh yeah, totally.
And the Believer cost 1.5 million. So I think this film could easily have cost 4 times the amount of the Slaughter Rule did. Which these are all previous Ryan Gosling films. If you haven't listened to previous episodes,
Yeah, because uh, I know we're jumping the gun a little bit, but I just want to give the audience who hasn't seen this movie a kind of clue as to how big this movie was. The cast goes Don Cheadle,
mm-hmm.
Ryan Gosling,
Yeah,
Chris Klein, who you might recognize if you see his face, or you might know him.
I reckon
Um,
that's where his
Jenna
face.
Malone, who is the crazy axe lady from Catching Fire and the Mockingjay movies. Kevin Spacey and Michelle Williams.
Yeah, and
Like,
also the thing is, I think this is one of those cases where, apart from Ryan Gosling, this isn't like pre-famous Don Cheadle or Kevin Spacey or people like that. I think they are known people at this time as well,
mhm.
which does help. Even though I'm sure Ryan Gosling, Ryan Gosling wasn't very well known at this time. But before we get into the film itself, it was released in 2003. What was your favorite film of the year?
Oh, you know what? I just saw X2, I think, really for the first time, and I really enjoyed that.
It is my second favorite X-Men film.
But let me just do a quick little
I think didn't Spider-Man
look
come out?
at other X2 2003 movies.
Isn't that when
There's a Lord of the Rings movie, so you might be inclined to say that.
that would be my favorite. Return of the King is a phenomenal film.
But yeah, I'll stick with X2. I'll stick with X2.
X2 is really great. It's my second favorite X-Men film after Days of Future Past because I recently also rewatched X2 and Days of Future Past, and both those films slap.
I'm showing my roommate them one by one.
I'm showing
And
my girlfriend them one by one.
we we started with First Class because I was like,
Really?
I thought it would be fun to manipulate his sense of what X-Men is by showing him X Class First Class first and then X-Men.
Yeah.
Because technically First Class is canon to both the
Yeah.
originals and the new ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did that, and we're just about to get into the bad ones now.
Yeah, so no, so far I've watched X-Men, X2, X3, X-Men Origins, First Class, Days of Future Past. And you get through X3 and X-Men Origins, you're like, that was rough. And then you get to watch First Class and Days of Future Past, and they are two great films.
All right, so
Anyway,
let's get back into it.
do you want to hear this might not be a fun fact, but I think it's an interesting fact about this film.
Okay.
So the critics gave it a 34% on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience gave it an 81%, which means this is the biggest gap between the audience and the critic scores on Rotten Tomatoes out of any Ryan Gosling film.
You don't have to really get into it quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with the critic score?
No,
Do you agree with the audience score?
no.
Uh,
But do you agree with either of them?
no,
Once
but
again,
I'm closer to one or the other.
it is like last week when we talked about Murder by Numbers. Like this film is not in the 30s of percent because Murder by Numbers got a 30%, which was less than this film, and I do not think these films deserve to be that low. But
No.
that's just how Rotten Tomatoes works. They could have all given them 5 out of 10s, and then
Yeah.
But okay, is
Who
that
directed this? Do we know that?
who directed this?
Matthew
So
Ryan.
Matthew
Hodge?
Ryan Hoche. This is the only thing he's ever worked on.
Interesting. So there must be some sort of passion project for him.
I'd love to know how in Hollywood you get into a position where you can make one decently budgeted film with like decent stars and then just never work on anything ever again or before.
Do you have any fun facts for this film?
No.
I just have one thing here,
Go on.
regarding Ryan Gosling's why he wanted to do this film
Oh yes, yeah.
off of Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt. Ryan Gosling says, I wanted to do the movie so badly because I felt like Leland was so different. It's the kind of character that it's not in movies very often, characters that are emotionally disconnected for the whole film. So it's a tricky thing to tap into.
Which I would say is true.
All right.
I
So,
do have a fun fact actually that I just spotted.
what is your fun fact?
So we've discussed this made no money. It made $300,000. Like in some places, you wouldn't be able to buy a house for that much money. It was originally it had a $50,000 opening weekend, and it was shown in 14 theaters. How many theaters do you think was its widest release?
I guess maybe like 50.
90. It was only in 90 cinemas, which is not like really small. And also interesting, like this film was only released in the US. Like this didn't have an international release at all. And weirdly, this is the first time I've like tried to find a film on Amazon Prime, and it's just not been on there at all.
It was on there for me, but
Yeah,
but what's weird is that captions weren't available.
that's weird. So I clicked on it and it said this film is not available in your region. So I had to buy it off YouTube because like it's just not available in the UK at all on Amazon. But
It's
anyway,
very interesting, especially given certain producers attached.
yeah, I don't know what the story like. It's weird because when there's a film that didn't make this much money and was as successful as this, like it's it's unusual that there's just not much information to talk about. But
All
anyway,
right, so let's get into the movie. Let's get into our thoughts
what are
on
your
this
general
movie.
thoughts on the United States of Leland?
I thought the first 20 minutes were interesting.
Uh-huh.
And I just, the way the movie wraps up, I found super unsatisfying,
Okay.
which I think may have been the point.
Hmm.
Because kind of the point I got from this is, I don't know. I think, well, I just really, there definitely was a reason as to why Ryan Gosling's character killed the kid,
Yeah.
but I don't think it worked.
Yeah.
How about you? What do you think?
I think I like this film more than you did. And while watching this film, I was aware this is going to happen. I'm not sure what, you know, tipped me off to it. But I do agree that I think it's got interesting ideas. I think there's like the characters themselves, like in a vacuum, I think the characters are interesting. But the way, like at least I would say three characters are interesting. And the way they're explored in this film, I don't think they really get the full potential of it. And I think everyone does well. I think, there's nothing bad. And I think I do enjoy Ryan Gosling's performance, but there's just a lot of monologues in this film where they kind of just like they're just real wishy washy about it, and they're like, hey, like they just say things that you would find on a middle aged woman's, you know, living room wall. Just like
Yeah,
I can't even think of an example, but there's just like, oh yeah, life is like what you make of it, and they're trying to make stuff like that sound really profound. But
there's
yeah,
the character of the sister's boyfriend that kind of goes insane
yeah,
protecting the family.
yeah.
Do you think that character was put there to act exactly as he acted, or as a way for the audience to be like, oh, maybe that's the guy that killed the brother? Like, do you think
I'm gonna be
that
honest,
the
that
mis
thought didn't cross my mind at all. Is that why you were a bit like, oh, is there going to be a mystery here?
yeah, I thought for a moment, considering the whole idea is that Ryan Gosling's character can't remember actually doing it.
Yeah, like
I was like,
the film opens with him like being caught for this murder, and he has this whole monologue where he's like, "Oh, it's weird how some things you just like." He's like, "I don't remember it at all, but it's weird the things you do remember," and blah blah blah. And
which
then
I thought was I thought that was an interesting way to open a film.
yeah, and I think the reason that they don't have him remember it is so he can't explain why he did it.
Right. But I thought that was the film was going for, was just going to be like, he didn't do it, but he did. But that character, the boyfriend who just like kind of goes insane,
Yeah, I
I
think
think that part of the film, in my opinion, is what worked the least.
um I think, yeah, I can see that. I think he goes insane so the film can end in the way it ends, which we will obviously talk about.
Um, yeah, but like, I don't know. We're never given any reason as to why his character's acting like that, and he just goes literally insane.
Yeah.
Um,
I have an idea, but we can talk about it.
what
I did find a line that the line that came up a few times is you have to believe that life is more than the sum of its parts, kiddo. That's the line I meant when I'm like, oh, that's what a middle-aged mum would be posting on Facebook.
mm, yeah.
I
Uh,
think this film is interesting, and I think it has interesting ideas, and I think it's well performed, and there are cool scenes. But overall, I think there's quite a bit of it. I think like this is similar to the Slaughter Rule in the way where
yes.
there's interesting ideas, but none of them are fully explored because there's quite a few things they're trying to focus on.
And also at times slightly questionable
Yes.
um
It's weird. I was thinking
actions.
about this. So we've mentioned it a few times that the whole like crux of the plot of this film is Ryan Gosling kills a disabled kid, and um some of the ways they choose to portray that in this film are questionable. Uh, and like it's beyond like the words they use to just describe it, because if it just stuck, because they use the R slur a lot, and not like as an excuse, but if that's all the film had did, I would overlook it, because I'm like, this film came out in 2003, 20 years ago. That was a very common thing. But then there's a lot of other stuff on top of that with like the way they talk about him, and then I don't think it's all badly handled. I think there's some um you know, there's some tact to some of it. Like it's not like it could be a lot worse, but it's just
Yeah.
weird that I think it was this badly handled when this film didn't come out in 1982. This film came out 20 years ago.
And there is also another part where Ryan Gosling's character, who's a high schooler. Oh, Dean, you all right?
Yeah,
You're frozen on my screen. Am I frozen on your screen? Oh,
not
there you go.
back. Okay, hello.
Where Ryan Gosling's character, who's a high schooler, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
You know where I'm going with this?
yes.
Just lays and makes out with a middle-aged woman.
Yeah, it's implied that he had a relationship with an older woman, and I don't mind that as much, because I don't think the film was ever like, hey, this is cool, by the way. Like, that's kind of the thing that breaks him.
You think that's what it is? That relationship? Because I didn't take that as it's breaking. If anything, I took it as like it was a healing moment for him.
To me, it's kind of the thing. So there's this whole thing where he goes to New York and he meets this woman, he spends time with her, and then he goes home. His girlfriend breaks up with him, and then he goes back to New York and he's like, "Hey, I didn't see the fire in her eyes anymore, but that's just because the fire was reflect, like the eyes just reflect back what they see." And it was like, "Oh, it's because my eyes have lost the fire." And I kind of read it as a like I think it's both. I think I think his girlfriend breaking up with him drove him to this woman, and then being with this woman obviously didn't help at all and made things worse, because there were bits where he would, but like at the end, the film ends with him being like, "Oh, I was staying up at night, lying, staring at the ceiling, thinking about her."
Yeah, either way, it's hard for it not to be like,
It's still weird.
what's going on here? But I guess like things that happen in Euphoria, and we just think it's fine. But also, I feel like not to Euphoria is a weird thing to bring into this conversation. But to be fair, that movie treats things. Everything comes with a little bit more of a consequence.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point that this is the third film out of the five old Ryan Gosling films we've watched, where we've gone. It's weird that this film is I hate using this phrase, but like not as politically correct as
Yeah.
other films from the era would be, because this is the third time it's come up, and it's not like films were like this in the early 2000s. It's just a weird coincidence that's running through The Believer and The Slaughter Rule and this, and each of them in a different way.
Would you agree that this movie has a message somewhere along the lines of everybody has their mistakes or their demons, but that doesn't stop them from being a good person? Something along those
Yeah,
lines?
yeah. Like there's a
Okay.
bit in the film where like he literally does say, "Oh, I like people can always be good," or something like that.
Yeah.
I did just read this line in the IMDb quotes, um, so I can find it for you. The worst part is knowing that there is goodness in people. Most it stays deep down and buried. Maybe we don't have God because we're scared of the bad stuff. Maybe we're really scared of the good stuff. Because if there's no God, well, it means that inside of us, we could all be good all the time if we wanted. So when we do bad things, it should be because we want to or because we have to. Or maybe we just need the bad stuff to remind us what the good stuff is in the first place. Now I'm like, oh, maybe Ryan Gosling did better in this film than I thought. Because when I read that line Ryan Gosling made, it sounded absolute garbage, and it didn't sound that bad coming out of his.
So speaking of, should we get to the gauze? Thoughts
Yeah.
on our
Okay.
thoughts on the gauze?
Okay. Straight out the gates. Straight out
Burn
the.
it.
I want to spend. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about this.
Okay.
I think we have a very unique Ryan Gosling haircut.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah. How would you describe this haircut? Like, I don't. I'm looking at it now, and I'm trying to think of someone I could relate it to, but
I would go just like a shaggy bowl cut,
yeah, and
but burn it.
it's very dark as well. Like, it's quite a
Yeah.
dark brown, which isn't Ryan Gosling's usual hair color.
No, the
Um,
boy is a blonde.
yes, and I think it does a very good job of making him look younger. I think he looks so much younger here than he does in like The Believer, which
For
is
sure.
difference. And it just took me by surprise every time I looked at him. I'm like, I think it's also the fact that he speaks a lot softly and in kind of a higher tone than he
Yeah.
usually does as well. Like he speaks a bit more meekly and a bit more at a higher register, and I think that threw me off as well. I'm like, yo, this is Ryan Gosling.
Um, I think part of it was definitely the hair color.
Yes, I think you are right. Now I'm looking at it more. It's such a dark brown. It's like a
It's such a dark brown, and I think I'm so used to him with his precious blonde locks.
yeah,
Um,
and various shades of blonde. I think he looks more weird like this than he does as like Ken.
that's true. Yeah. Honestly, in this movie, he kind of reminded me of the teenager from the Lorax.
Mm-hmm. Random
Um,
question. We've never discussed this before. Maybe this is a good recurring question. If this film was
Jojo McDodd.
made now, who would you cast as Leland?
I like Timothy Chalamet or Finn Wolfhard.
Yeah, like a Finn Wolf. He does look a bit like it's a Finn Wolfhard haircut. I think you've got it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, Finn Wolfhard, Timothy Chalamet, decent options. I don't know why. This is kind of it makes me think of Tom Holland in Cherry. I don't know
Never
why.
seen that movie.
Neither have I. That's why I think it's weird. It makes me think it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. Anyway, beyond the hair, how do you think he does in this film?
He does fine. I
Mm-hmm.
think like Ryan, not to mean to jump ahead a little bit, but this whole idea of a detached character,
Mm-hmm.
um, he'll certainly become a little bit more comfortable with that concept as his career furthers.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and here I think he does a good job. At no point did I think he was giving a bad performance.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there were at points where I was like, this isn't an amazing performance,
Yeah.
but he does what the script needs him to. Um,
I think he does very well because I think he's supposed to be showing a level of emotion consistently. Just kind not because I think I mean I know he said it and it's come up quite a bit. I don't even know if like disconnected is the right precise thing to describe it because it's kind of like this
yeah,
constant sadness as well
uh-huh.
in a
I
way. And
agree.
I think he does a good job with that. And I don't know. I think his voice throws me off in this, and I don't know if I like it or not.
Yeah, when I started this,
Or you've muted yourself, I think.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, weird. I wasn't muted. I muted myself so I could blow my nose. Um, but I just had to click mute and unclick it again, and for whatever. Um, my roommate has a long running joke that I absolutely hate, where he has trouble distinguishing white men from one another.
Mm-hmm.
He really struggles with Tom Hanks and Bill Murray.
I can see that. Yeah.
Um, so sometimes he'll make jokes like, "Oh, is that Tom Holland or is that a whatever, whatever?" And when the movie started, it was the first person we see is the child that gets murdered,
Mhm.
and he goes, "Is that Ryan Gosling?" And then I went, "Shut up." And then Ryan Gosling starts speaking, and he's like, "Wait, is that Ryan Gosling?" And I was like, "I think so." So that was a moment of like, it does not sound like Ryan Gosling. Really, he has a. It
Yeah.
took me a second to get used to it, but you get used to
You quite off topic, but you can tell Devon that I suffer from the same thing despite actually being a white man. Not that long ago, I watched the world's greatest beer run. Um,
Oh, what'd you think? I like that with
I
Zac
liked I
Efron.
liked that film for
I
half the
saw that
film.
one in the theaters.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, for half the film, I thought Tom Hanks was in it.
And who was it?
It's Bill Murray.
Ah, I hate. I'm not gonna tell him that. 'Cause then he'll. I've been driving it home for maybe a year that that is a stupid thing to do. The
But
fact that you do it as well would. I
but we
wouldn't hear
know
the end
I'm
of it.
stupid. You can be like, oh, I've got further proof this thing is stupid because Dean also does it.
No, no, no. He needs just one other person to agree with him.
I'll get in contact with him myself. I will.
No, you won't. Don't you dare. You don't even know his handle. You can't get to him.
Anyway, moving on.
Should we go into the co-star? Because we got a lot of talk about
Yeah,
there.
I think we spent more time on the hair than the actual performance. But he does good. He does good. It's different from I think this is more slaughter rule than anything else we've seen.
Yes.
In
Yeah.
performance wise. Maybe that's why those films made no money. Okay, co-stars. I think the earlier on I said there's three characters I find interesting. Who do you think they are?
The character of Don Cheadle.
Yeah, the character of Don Cheadle. He's such a character, that guy.
Kevin Spacey's character.
Yeah, and the third one's Ryan Gosling.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, I think those two are interesting. But let's talk about Don Cheadle.
Let's talk about everybody besides Kevin Spacey, so we can get to him at the end.
Okay. Um.
Don Cheadle.
Yeah.
He does well in this. I was very surprised how consistently I was liking this character less and less, and then I kind of liked him at the end.
Yeah, so this character's whole deal is basically so Leland, who's Ryan Gosling, goes to this like juvenile prison, and Don Cheadle is his teacher, and Don Cheadle keeps like meeting up with Leland, and he's like trying to help him out and talk him through this issue. Will be like, oh, why did you kill this guy? And it later turns out that the only reason he's doing this is because he's trying to write a book about Leland, and then there's this whole subplot about him cheating on his girlfriend. Was it a girlfriend?
Yep.
Yeah, him cheating on his girlfriend, and then Leland like reacting to that, and that sort of thing. And I think I do really like him because at the start I think maybe it took me a little too long to catch on to this book thing. I think they do hint at it earlier than I picked up on it. Um, and I thought it was very likable how he was helping him out and helping him write and that sort of thing. But it's the classic thing of it turns out, oh, Ryan Gosling was helping Don Cheadle. I said John Cheadle then. Um, Don Cheadle all along.
Well, so what my problem was with it when it's revealed that he is Don Cheadle's character is going to write a book about Leland.
Yeah.
I was like, this is so weird because he's just exploiting this child.
Yeah.
But then the movie addresses it.
The film's very aware of that. Yeah.
And the one thing I don't think worked at the end, it's kind of like Don Cheadle's character is what the movie wants you to think is yes, he's exploiting this, but he really does truly care about Leland.
That's interesting. I
Right?
think,
And here, I'm going to blow my nose.
yeah, I think you can make the argument that he started this whole deal out, like just exploiting him. And then he'd turn, and like as Don Cheadle shared more about his life and that sort of thing, he did learn to care about Ryan Gosling. Like that would be my interpretation.
Right. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I agree. However, I could never shake the feeling that like you're still exploiting this child. You know what I mean? Like it's still
Yeah,
like
no, I agree. And like it's a weird one because it's not like he doesn't get what he deserves because he does lose his job. Like
yeah.
like he does get punished for what he's doing. But I mean, I guess we don't know because does he write the book? I don't think it's is it like it's not explicitly said one way or the other, is it?
No.
So who I think it's down to that. If he doesn't write this book and he just lives his life, then I don't think he does do anything wrong, and I think it's fine. But then if he does write the book, then
I
obviously,
think you will write the book,
yeah.
personally.
I think Don Cheadle is good though. I think he kind of plays this. I think he kind of is the emotional core of this film. I think like he has some interesting scenes. I think it's kind of weird because it says a whole subplot of him cheating on his girlfriend, and then Ryan Gosling figures this out very fast, like Sherlock Holmes or something. I found that a little bit weird because the whole thing,
Yeah, but I think it's just like the weird detached
yeah,
sociopath kid that the script is like, oh, he can smell the girls.
yeah, because
That's yeah,
he
yeah.
tell a woman on Don Cheadle despite the fact he knows his girlfriend's in Los Angeles. Um, and like there's this whole, and I think the whole thing is of him being like detached from his own life, and he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna cheat on my girlfriend in a similar way to how Leland is walking around detached. I think was interesting.
I don't think that again. So this film has a message of like not nobody's perfect and we all make mistakes even though we know they're wrong.
Nobody's perfect. Yeah.
And they push this messaging through the character of Don Cheadle with him cheating on his girlfriend. But considering you're already at a your liking towards this character is at a disadvantage with the whole book thing,
Mm-hmm.
really made me not. Don Cheadle gives a good performance. I don't mean performance wise, but the character. It makes you not like the character that Don Cheadle's playing.
Yeah.
So I don't. It was an interesting way to also get more of an idea of Ryan Gosling's character psyche
Mm-hmm.
through Don Cheadle cheating on his girlfriend, but also like I don't know. I don't know how useful it was.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I think they could have like if they had lent into it more, I think it would have been worse. But there is this kind of thing where he does feel the remorse and blah blah blah. But whatever. Who do you want to talk about next after good old Don?
Um, I think we can talk about real quickly Michelle Williams' character and Jenna Malone.
Are they the sisters?
They're the sisters.
So one of them is Ryan Gosling's ex-girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
She does a lot of drugs. She broke up with Ryan Gosling, which is what pushed him over the edge. And then she continues taking these drugs once he's killed.
This movie also has a really weird way of uh telling the story because it goes back in time.
Yeah, and I get why they go back in time, but it's not always clear.
There's no distinct way of knowing. Really, the only way you do know is based on if Ryan Gosling's character
That's
is in the
that's
scene.
literally what I was about to say. So that obviously the film opens with Ryan Gosling killing this kid, and then he goes to prison. And while he's in prison, we flash back to what's going on. What happened before and how he met this girl and blah blah blah. But when Ryan Gosling isn't in the scene, obviously you have no idea whether the film takes place in the past or the present. And there are a few scenes without him because the whole point is that she was dating a drug dealer older than her before meeting Ryan Gosling. And then when he gets out of prison, she cheats on him with with this drug dealer. And when there's scenes one on one with her with the drug dealer, I guess they are all taking place in the past, I think.
No, well, because there's that one where the boyfriend comes in and breaks down the door and is like, "You are ruining this family."
Oh yeah. Oh, but just is that not the past?
That for me, that was the future.
Okay, the future.
Present day. Sorry, but
Yeah,
it's what I'm saying. Like
but
some
yeah,
of
I
that
don't.
needs. I feel like that needs to be more
And you could just do what Zack
clear.
Snyder does. Just give them a haircut.
Yeah.
Have you seen? Did you ever watch Rebel Moon Part Two?
No. No.
I watched Rebel Moon Part Two. I felt an obligation to after the Rebel Moon brand has done so much for me. Um, and there's a bit in Rebel Moon 2 where they literally sit around a table and they all tell each other their backstories,
Oh yeah. Well,
which
I've heard about
which is a stupid idea for a scene where they just sit there and they go, well, actually, I did this. And like none
that.
of their stories link. There's no like moral lesson that's going to be learned later through these guys' stories. It's just going to be like, hey, I did this. And then there's just a scene of a battle. But every single character in the flashback had a different, like a vastly different haircut. And I found it so interesting trying to get like when it got to the third person, I was like, oh, they've got a different haircut. I was trying to guess what the next person's haircut was going to be because some of them have long hair. And then in the flashback, they have really short hair. And then the ones with really short hair had really long hair in the flashbacks. It was just fascinating. And I found it really fun watching those haircuts change. And I think this film could have learned something from Zack Snyder in the future.
Amen.
Yeah.
So Jenna Malone did good. Um, but I think Michelle Williams, who I love as an actress, she's great. She did not have a very large part in this movie.
No, she did not.
But
She plays the sister of the kid and the.
this definitely won't be the last time we see Michelle Williams. So,
It won't.
um, I just wanted to talk about her for a second. All right, that's the rest of the cast. Let's talk about the big one.
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey, one of Hollywood's worst.
He plays an awful man in this film, but somehow in real life he manages to be infinitely worse. So in this film, he is Leland's father, and he's a distant father. And like I think there's an interesting thing going on in this film. This is a fun fact I thought of this film, but I thought I'd save it for when we talk about Kevin Spacey. Is
Okay.
that like to show how like estranged the relationship between the father and the son is. They made it so they never like shared a scene together, and so they never interact with each other, and they are in the same room when Leland is in the courthouse, but they're never in the same shot.
Yeah.
And I think that was very interesting and a good way to go. And this whole like I think the scenes with Kevin Spacey that worked and I liked were the ones with Don Cheadle. Like there's one where Don Cheadle meets Kevin Spacey in a bar and he's like, hey, can you tell me a bit about your son and your relationship with your son? And Kevin Spacey is very quickly like, oh, you're trying to write a book about this. And I
Yeah.
thought that scene, I think that made one of my favorite scenes of the film. I thought there was like a good dynamic between the two of them and like a good conversation there.
I totally
Um,
agree.
there are a lot of scenes of Kevin Spacey just sitting somewhere and you know just doing nothing and reacting to stuff. And I think those slower moments of the film do drag it down. But
So Kevin Spacey does fine in this.
yeah, like I think no one's arguing the fact that he's a talented actor. Like obviously awful man.
However,
There's a reason why he was in as many things as he was before everyone figured out he was an awful man.
he did produce this film,
He did.
which involves being extremely involved in the script writing, the pre-production, all that jazz.
Yeah, yeah,
And if you look at the film, right?
yeah,
It's a movie that follows a kid
yeah.
who has a romantic relationship
With
with
an older
with an
person.
older person,
Yeah,
and the entire message of the film is everybody makes their mistakes, but it doesn't necessarily stop them from being a good person.
yeah. The thing at the part of this film, which made me cringe, knowing Kevin Spacey, was that when they're sitting in a bar when he's like, "Oh, I'm not gay. I don't want to have sex with you." He says that, but he uses about he manages to fit about three
You muted
slurs to
yourself.
that sentence. And that just makes me cringe a little bit.
Oh, could you talk again?
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you now.
Okay, I just said there's a bit where he's like, "Oh, I'm not gay. Oh, my internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me?"
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. There's the bit where he's like, "I am not gay. I don't want to have sex with you," but he uses about two slurs in that sentence. That bit made me cringe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
So that's kind of weird. That whole, you know, because since it came out that he was a horrible person, you kind of have to reanalyze every film he
yeah,
does and why he did it.
and like without getting too granularly into it, this was a long time ago. Like I don't know enough about the Kevin Spacey court trials and stuff that have been going on to know the timeline of things. So who knows how explicit or you know
Yeah, but I agree.
like yeah, it's definitely an interesting point to be made.
All right, but now that we addressed that elephant, let's get into the plot.
Yeah, we've kind of talked about this a lot already.
We kind of have, so we'll just. I thought this kind of gets into the direction and the plot,
Yeah,
but I think the two things that do not work in this film's favor, I would say, is the character of the sister's boyfriend.
yeah.
It just kind of goes mental. I don't think that really works because we're never given any context to why he's acting like this. He's just crazy.
Can I,
And
I give you my interpretation?
okay, go ahead.
Okay, spoiler alert for how this film ends. If you don't want spoilers, why are you still here? The film ends with this guy ending up in prison and then killing Ryan Gosling's character in the prison yard. Like after seeing that scene, I was kind of like, oh, did he just do all this stuff to end up in prison?
Well, he robbed the bank to end up in prison,
Yes,
but nothing else he did to get in prison.
it's true.
Because what I took it as is for some reason he's super defensive of this mom,
Yeah,
and he just wants to do everything he can to protect the mom. And so he sees this daughter messing up the mom's life. So he goes and tries to fix the daughter. And then when he realizes that that's not the problem, it's this kid that murdered her son, he's like, the only way that I can solve this lady's life is if I kill this kid.
it's the way you just worded it made it seem like, oh, this daughter's been pretty annoying. This is obviously what's wrong with this mom. Oh wait, it might be that her other son was just murdered.
It is that I feel like
Yeah.
it's how the movie treats it a little bit, and I don't it doesn't work for me. The
I
other
don't
thing,
I don't know if I wasn't paying enough attention, but every time it cut to one of the parents, other than Kevin Spacey, I had to always be like, wait, is this the kid's parents or Ryan Gosling's parents?
it was very unclear in the beginning. I caught on pretty quickly, but it was very unclear in the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, and then the whole going back and forth in time without any distinguishable changes in appearance and
Yeah.
or look of the film
Yeah,
did not work in the
I
film's
think that's a
favor.
direction issue. I do.
Yeah,
I think, you could put just even if they like, put a blue filter over the past, like I think I would have rathered that dumb
yeah,
idea than
nothing.
yeah.
All right, so wild card time, yes.
Wild card time, yes.
Wild card time. So we struggled picking a wild card for this film. If you don't know, what we do for the wild card is we kind of take the biggest thing the film's going for and
Yeah.
address that as the wild card.
Yep. Yep.
So in
Yep. That's what we
past
do.
movies,
Every
we
single week we do that
every
without
single
fail.
week
Okay.
without fail.
Don't you dare accuse us of missing a week. I'm
We
making
don't
it
miss
sound like
wild cards. Not here. Not on the Literally Me podcast.
not on the
In
HD movie. I mean the Literally
no,
Me podcast.
dude, I can't believe you just said that.
I'm making it sound like we missed a week, but we actually haven't missed a week.
We didn't. We were actually not doing too bad. All right, but this week The
We're not
wild card
being too
is
bad.
the movie's message.
Yes, like the messaging of the film, what is like the subtext. So, should we get to the meat of the matter and talk about Ryan Gosling killed the disabled kid?
Sure.
Sorry, Leland killed the disabled kid. I don't want to get any libel.
Ryan Gosling has made no such acts that we know of.
Yeah, that isn't,
It's not public
allegedly.
knowledge.
Anyway, so the whole point is when Ryan Gosling's character breaks up with his girlfriend, and then I argued when he then slept with this older woman, he was kind of pushed into this depression, and he just couldn't deal with anything, and he'd stay up all night thinking about it, and then he'd just sleepwalk through his day, and then he did this thing where he walked home his ex-girlfriend's disabled brother every day, and like walk him home from school, make sure he's okay, and hang out with him a bit. And he'd walk him home, and while he was like picking him up from school or whatever, he noticed that the brother had a crush on this girl, and he couldn't like express this in any way, and like there's this whole point where Ryan Gosling's character is like, oh, and I know that he knows that he could never have that in his life, and he'd never have that life in his love in his life because he's disabled. So then when he's walking home, the kid starts to he crashes his bike into a bush or something like that, and starts to freak out a little bit. And then Ryan Gosling goes up to him and goes, hey, it's all right, don't worry about it, everything's gonna be all right, I promise. And then the film ends, and the point is, at this point there's a revelation that Ryan Gosling killed this kid because in his eyes this kid was going through a very similar thing to he was going through, where like he just couldn't love in his life. And Ryan Gosling, to use just an absolutely awful phrase in the context, put him out of his misery, or that's what Ryan Gosling's character interpreted as what he was doing.
Yeah.
Would you disagree with any of that? Would you add anything to any of that?
No, I don't. I agree.
Yeah. Actually,
However,
yeah. However,
there is a question of how well was that executed.
Yeah, it's interesting because the whole point, the bit of him watching, his name's Ryan. I should remember Ryan instead of saying the kid or the brother. Him watching Ryan, like with this girl, and like kind of the commentary over the top of that. I thought that worked. I'm not an expert on any of this stuff, but to me, that was like not a nice note, and it was kind of an interesting thing of him being like, oh, this guy, he's like this disabled kid wants a normal life and he wants to live normally, but he's unable to because he's kind of trapped in this body. And I thought that bit was, I go on. You look like you had something to say.
I agree. I do think that's definitely true in the like a lot of because the Mac is about to die. I've there's a lot more people who have experience with kids on the spectrum or with mental disabilities. Sorry, I don't know why I needed to stretch this then.
You're just trying to get this important piece of commentary out while charging your laptop, gone.
However, I have worked with kids on the spectrum or with any sort of special needs.
He's talking about me when he's talking about working with kids on the spectrum.
Oh, come on, you're in your 20s now. You're not
okay.
Anyways, and you definitely do see that. You see them struggle with wanting to just be treated like a normal kid.
Yeah.
And some people just not understanding. And I think that was very true. And that was an interesting that Ryan Gosling's character felt so sorry for him.
And I think it's well verbalized as well.
Yeah. And I know this character, he's not supposed to be the most sane, but being like the only way to help this kid is to kill him.
Yeah.
There are other avenues you can take. I don't know how well that worked.
Literally any other avenue, you should take in that
Yeah,
situation. Um,
especially because he loved that kid so much.
yes,
But
yeah.
this is a movie, so whatever.
It's the kind of thing where at the end, so the film ends with this big reveal, and the whole point of this film leading up to it has been like Ryan Gosling has been asking people, he's like, why have I done this? I don't know why I've done this. I don't know what's wrong with me. And this is the big reveal at the end of this is why he did it. But number one, I don't think the revelation is as big as the film has been treating it. I don't think it ends and you're like, whoa, it all makes sense now. It's not one of those endings.
No,
And also, I'm a bit confused how I'm supposed to feel about it as like the audience. I don't know if I'm supposed to feel sorry for Ryan Gosling's I mean, I guess I just feel sorry for everyone involved.
yeah. By no means is Ryan Gosling's character redeemed, and
Yeah. The film
although
doesn't
I
end with
want
being
him
like,
to be,
yeah,
the film is not meant to be like. But this guy, everybody's meant to be kind of a bad person in this film.
yeah,
However, I just don't think it worked as
yeah.
well as I wanted it to.
I think it would have been a lot better and a lot more. Maybe if they revealed this three quarters, two-thirds of the way into the film, because I
Yeah,
think leaving it until literally the last shot of the film is him hugging Ryan and saying everything's going to be okay, I promise. Um, I think leaving it until the very end makes it feel like a lot of a bigger reveal than it actually feels like when you watch the film.
because when you watch a film, you're like, oh yeah, I guess that could okay. That's kind of what I had an idea of what happened, anyways.
Yeah,
So my thoughts on the message were I get where they were going with, but they just missed the mark, in terms of like really mm, driving it home and having the audience be able to digest it.
I just also think I have like this is a thing with a lot of movies sort of like this, where I don't think the message is revolutionary enough for them to focus so much time on this. Because all this
Yeah,
film was saying is, oh, people can there's good in everyone. And like I think that's a pretty, that's a message you would get in Toy Story 5. And
right. And also, like, there's good in everyone, even a person who murdered a autistic child.
yeah,
It's like, what? How am I? That's a weird. That definitely is a message of there's good in everybody, but like it takes some of the worst people to display that message, which is on one hand interesting, but on the other hand,
yeah. I know we're not doing the silver lining, which is the podcast Hannah and I used to do, where we'd watch a real bad film and then would fix it. If I was to fix this film, and like it had to be like a small change, I would reveal that why like this scene of why he killed the kid, maybe two-thirds in, three-quarters in, like I said. And then for the actual ending, really lean into this fact that he was previously groomed by by this older woman.
yeah.
Did you have you watched Baby Reindeer?
No, I have not. I've been meaning to though.
Yeah,
I heard
Baby
there's a
Reindeer.
lot. I heard there's a lot bigger in your country than it was
Yeah,
here.
yeah, it is. But it's an incredible show. Like I would really recommend it. It is quite damaging, but that kind of does a similar thing where they're like the main like the biggest person who's at fault when you watch the events of that show. And like by no means does he do the worst things within the show, but the main character is the guy that gets the blame through the narrative. And it's the kind of thing where they show you exactly why this character did the things he did and made these bad decisions he made, and like they explain it thoroughly, but they do it in a way which doesn't excuse him of those actions, which I think is
Mm,
done really well and is a really difficult balance to get. And I don't think this film got that balance right, because to me
interesting.
it felt a bit too much like an excuse, and I know that's not
Yeah.
what the film was trying to do,
No,
but
I totally agree though.
Baby Reindeer is the kind of thing where the main character makes big mistakes and they show why, and you feel sorry for him. but you're never like, oh, it's fine that he did that thing. But I think this film is leaning too far in the other direction.
I agree.
Okay, is that all we have to say on the
I
United
believe so.
States of Leland? I think one last thought.
Okay.
Solid name for a film.
Yeah.
Solid name. Might be my favorite name we've talked about of all his early films.
I don't know. Sure, maybe. If that makes you happy.
Sure, whatever. What would you rate this film out of 10? I can give you some of your earlier ratings if you're interested.
I think I would give this movie a 6.
A 6. Yeah, I can see that. So that is the same as you gave The Believer.
Yep. I feel pretty good about that.
I think I'll give this film a 6.5, just because I feel like I did like it a bit more than you did.
Fair enough.
Then the question here is, what do we give The Goz?
Can you run through what we've given him before real quick?
So, Full Guy, 8.5. Remember the Titans, 5. The Believer, 8. The Slaughter Rule, 6.5. Murder by Numbers, 7. I think this, personally, 6.5 or 7, which is The Slaughter Rule or Murder by Numbers.
I gotta go 6.5.
Really? Okay, yeah, I think I can see that. I think he is better in Murder by Numbers than he is here.
He's more fun in Murder by Numbers.
Yeah, he's got more charm. And that rounds that out. For the 5th week in a row, literally me, I'm going to write in no, because I never murdered a disabled child.
A child, though? That's still up in the
air. No comment. So, the next Ryan Gosling film we are talking about, we're finally getting into the big leagues. A film most people have heard of. It is The Notebook. Have you watched this before?
Yes, I have.
I haven't.
Really? It's a good one.
And we should be having a guest too. So that's exciting.
Exciting.
Okay. Thank you for listening, everyone. Please remember, I was trying to think of a joke to say. I can't think of a joke, so I'm just going to really end this podcast on a.
All right. Adios, everybody.
That's the wet fart. Thank you for that's your new nickname. Thanks and bye.
I don't like that one.